Boruto Hate in 2025 is very played out, repetitive, boring, plagued by misconceptions, and most importantly, redundant. Boruto is a series that officially started with the manga on May 9th, 2016, but has been getting hated on even before then with the release of the Boruto movie all the way back in October 10th of 2015. A whole 7 months before then, where the fans of the prequel would complain about numerous things, ranging from the actual plot of the movie, all the way to the name of Naruto's son, Boruto, which felt like some cheap copy ripoff of the original series we all loved and even grew up watching. Now, while it's easy to just say the hate ranges from thing A to thing B, let me give you some examples of those things. The plot of the movie. Many people hated Kaguya's introduction and in turn hated the direction of the movie with introducing more Otsutsuki aliens. This whole foreign parasitic race was widely considered to be an actual move from Kishimoto to kill off fan favorite character Madara Uchiha, and they say it completely ruined the ending of Naruto. Boruto's character. On top of the name being a reason this movie was hated on, his character itself is portrayed as bratty, ignorant, and selfish, and especially his supposed hatred towards his father, Naruto Uzumaki, is still one of the biggest gripes I hear about him by uninformed people to this day. Character designs. Much like the last one, this is still one of the biggest complaints I hear about the series even into 2025 because majority of the fans at the time of this movie's release hated almost every single character design choice made for this movie. While the general opinion of this has become less negative over time, it was still very prominent. Another thing I'd like to add here though is most fans of Naruto watch the anime instead of reading the manga, and if they were an anime only person, all of these designs were completely new to them and fresh, while if you actually read the manga, majority of the designs from this movie were actually in the 700th chapter of Naruto, making it probably a little easier to accept. Lastly, the power scaling. The strength of the two main cast has been controversial for the most part, with the complete switch up on portraying power that was taken in this series which most hated. We went from flying god and fox avatars shooting giant lightning arrows blowing up battlefields, to smaller, more taijutsu, close quarters combat focused fights, which I personally love, but many saw it as the author, Kishimoto, nerfing the fan favorites. There are obviously more things to touch on, and all the points I brought up can most certainly be expanded upon, but that would take far too much time for this video, and I have other things I'd like to cover, like the anime adaptation all the way to our current time, the time skip. If you'd want a full video covering the hate towards the Boruto movie throughout the years and debunking most of the misconceptions there, please let me know in the comments and I'll be sure to make it. Speaking of the anime adaptation, let's get into that. When I say this almost single-handedly ruined the general perception of the series, I mean it wholeheartedly. Let's start with the most notorious problem here, which is the overabundance of filler and anime canon episodes causing the weekly watching experience to be very poor. As someone who has personally watched all of Boruto and has watched Naruto completely through, even including all of the filler twice, there was, in my and every other person I've talked to's opinion, a distinct drop-off in terms of quality and feel of these filler and anime canon episodes that wasn't there during Naruto. At first glance, this wouldn't be too much of an issue because you can just skip all these fillers and just focus on the manga canon episodes instead, right? Well, according to animefillerlist.com, that is very easy to do. They list it as only having 11% filler, which is a very deceiving number. If you're anything like me, I simply care about the manga story and the events that are directly from the manga being adapted. So if we consider everything that's not directly from the manga as filler, then this measly 11% shoot all the way up to 74 to 85%, which is absurd. On top of this as well, if you see that number and are like, okay, well, I'll still give it a shot, just a heads up, there are mixed anime canon and manga canon episodes as well to make it even harder to navigate. As much as I just ripped into this for the amount of anime canon and filler episodes, I do still recommend you watch the anime if you do enjoy Boruto the manga, as I personally don't regret watching it. I love the manga, and since I can separate these two things and look at the anime as pure entertainment factor and not mix it with the manga stuff, I did enjoy a lot of the arcs many people hate, like the time slip arc, which was amazing. One thing I completely forgot to mention about this was that the anime made the decision on remaking the whole Boruto movie into episodes, which for a weekly show, rewatching a movie over the course of countless weeks was kind of redundant and a momentum stopper. Aside from that complaint, the animation also often gets flack because I won't lie, it does get bad at points and turns into a slideshow, but that's only because of the time constraints placed under the animators didn't really allow for them to be pumping out such high quality episodes consistently, and if you really watched the anime or paid attention at all, any manga canon fights and important canon moments were all animated flawlessly. Aside from random in-between frames and the rare JPEG moving up and down moments sprinkled in, the actual animation, while art style isn't the most consistent, is very good. Finally, let's talk about the manga, as that's really what it all boils down to at the end of the day and what I'm more familiar with. There's a plethora of misconceptions surrounding many aspects of this story, and while I can't completely cover them all, I will be talking about the most prominent ones I'm still seeing being brought up in 2025 that are completely ridiculous. I know I slightly touched on this earlier, but let's talk about Boruto's character early on with his supposed hatred towards his father, because this is and will always probably be one of the most common things uninformed people will say to take digs at the series, which is he hates his father and he's a little spoiled brat, blah blah blah, all of that nonsense, and they act like it's who Boruto is and it's his only personality trait until the start of the time skip, which couldn't be further from the truth. I would like to start off with the fact that Boruto has never quote-unquote hated Naruto. Now, I will be refusing to completely dive into this emotional aspect of the relationship, but the feeling Boruto has towards Naruto is flat out not hatred, but instead the complete opposite. It's love. This kind of dynamic between the two is a very common thing most people experience in their life amongst their own family, and something I see all the time with friends and family, and even though I'm not a therapist or a feelings doctor, it's something someone as emotionally void as myself can see is clearly not your typical hatred. That being said, the points at which Boruto, and I'll be using this word very loosely going forward, hates Naruto only persists for at most 2 arcs, which totals to 15 chapters, which is not a lot of time at all. And comparing that to the 80 chapter total makes this one singular trait only last at most 18.75% of the first part of the story, yet it's the only thing about Boruto's character the haters like to bring up. If you've noticed, I've been using the words "at most" to describe this particular trait because that's just the common consensus of the meaning of the second arc that people say. Yet, if you actually read more into the very first arc of the story, you can see that this quirk of his actually dissipates at the end of the 6th chapter when Naruto gets taken by Momoshiki and they start to go and get him back. At this moment, Boruto no longer sees Naruto as some chump who neglects his family and does some stupid job that just anyone can do. He now sees him for what he is, the strongest shinobi who, as Hokage, will put himself on the line in order to protect those in the village he considers family. This now drops the percentage of 18.75 all the way down to 7.5% of next generations, where you can possibly make a case for Boruto quote-unquote hating his father. This take and opinion is wildly misinformed and stupid if you've actually read the series. Next, let's talk about the pacing and chapter releases of Boruto. Since the beginning, Boruto has been monthly, meaning the chapters are released every month, in this case on the 20th or 19th sometimes, which is quite the drastic switch up from most other insanely popular shonen series, which are weekly chapters containing a lot less pages. What most people find annoying about Boruto and claim will cause it to die is the schedule, which at first glance they may have a point. Yes, when that chapter gets released it's 40 plus pages of peak, but once you get through that, you're going to be waiting around for a whole other month, and let's say that chapter wasn't what you expected, then all of a sudden you're disappointed, and then you wait and the cycle continues. Comparing this to the norm of weekly, it's just another week, not that long of a time, and if you factor in leaks coming in a few days early, you basically only have to wait like 4 to 5 days for more content of that series. Here's the thing though, to me, the monthly schedule is basically perfect. Would I like a new chapter weekly? Sure. Would I like a new chapter bi-weekly? Sure. Would I like for the author to get hiatus-inducing health issues and burnt out? Hell no. A huge issue with weekly release is the very harsh time management and conditions they have to work under, and this isn't uncommon. There's a magnitude of mangaka who fall ill or have very poor health, and some have even kicked the bucket by working hours on end and only sleeping 3 hours a night before getting right back into it. Comparing that to the large, typically young kids to teenager demographic who's probably never worked a 10 to 12 hour shift in their life, it's not something they can even fathom doing, so they don't care. Obviously, there are exceptions where people my age and older do work jobs and long hours and have more responsibilities who still would prefer weekly chapters, but if the choice is between a weekly story by an author who's highly likely to be riddled with health issues and is forced to make writing decisions they don't want due to the pressure of the schedule or publishers and assistants, compared to that of a monthly release where the mangaka can work and not have these extreme drawbacks, I would hope that the people who are adult and older have the common sense to prioritize another person rather than their own selfish desires for more ink on pages. A final point to add on to that is, as great of an idea of seeing a new Boruto chapter weekly would be, there's something nice and therapeutic about getting hyped and waiting that month and reading that chapter and dedicating that time out of my busy schedule to read the chapter that I just wouldn't have if it was weekly. I remember when I was younger, there was a time when I was like, oh, it's only 5 minutes to do this one thing a day. How are you saying you don't have time? When it came to like games or anything else, but now that I'm older, it really does feel like even the 7 minutes you set aside to read a new chapter and really digest it, it adds up, or it can slip away and be pushed to the side, and then before you know it, you're behind a whole lot. As someone who likes to support the creators of manga, I would gladly wait the extra time for the chapter if it means the author is in good spirits and health, and a good example of this is Chojin X. Sue Ishida, the mangaka of Tokyo Ghoul, has said he was unhappy with the direction and way Tokyo Ghoul played out because of assistance and scheduling. So when he made Chojin X, it's on a schedule of chapters releasing whenever he wants, so he can truly create the story he wants while not facing any backlash from publishers, which is going very well in my opinion. The story is phenomenal, and if you liked Tokyo Ghoul, I would recommend you checking this out. Let's talk pacing now, as it's something I've been seeing a lot recently, especially around the latest chapters. Straight up, not every chapter has to have a fight. I'm not sure if this is what the kids call JJK brain rot, but if you seriously think the story is supposed to be fight after fight after fight with no rhyme or reason, I have nothing to say to you, and you should just stop reading everything that's not Solo Leveling or Jujutsu Kaisen, because setup needs to happen for any of the fights to have substance. If there's no build-up or exposition, then you don't know why or how they're fighting. Imagine if in Boruto it was Momoshiki fight, then instantly Delta and Kashin Koji are fighting them next chapter, and then right after that, Jigen comes out of the woodworks and starts laying hands all without any context. It would be awful, and that's really what you guys are demanding at this point. It is ridiculous. Especially with Boruto, where in my opinion, and no disrespect to Ikemoto's choreography, the chapters where background information is revealed and more twists and turns are happening, building up towards the next confrontation, are some of the best chapters in Two Blue Vortex, but just because people aren't flying around fighting, throwing Biju bombs and blowing up mountains, it's a F tier chapter and a waste of a month. We are in the early stages of 2025, so there still is a chance these sentiments disappear by the end of it, but seeing how criticisms from 2015 are still being echoed a whole decade later, I find it hard to believe that will happen any time before the series actually ends, and who knows, it probably will still be happening long after the final chapter. Hey, if you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much. I appreciate you greatly. I truly do hope you enjoyed. And if you did, if you could subscribe and like the video, it would mean the world to me. I have a Discord server and a Twitter. They are both linked in the description, so join those up and we can chat with the community. And go ahead and check out my other videos. I guarantee you there's something there you'll enjoy. Thank you once again, and like usual, have a good day.